Welcome to the Book Buzz Show with Cheryl, where we dive into the captivating world of books. Here at the Book Buzz Show, we encourage you to make your pages turn with joy and immerse yourself in a magical literary experience. Enjoy the show. Welcome to the Book Buzz Show with Cheryl, where we dive into the captivating world of books. Here at the Book Buzz Show, we encourage you to make your pages turn with joy and immerse yourself in a magical literary experience. Enjoy the show.
Hello, and welcome to the Book Buzz Show. I'm your host, Cheryl Brooks. And if you're new here, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. If you enjoy the upcoming show, please like, follow, subscribe, and share the broadcast. For those who are new here at the Book Buzz Show, we do discuss a little of the book and the characters, but just with minor spoilers. We don't do anything major that would ruin your reading enjoyment. Also, in addition to being a live broadcast, the Book Buzz Show is also a podcast. So you can check us out when you're on the go, wherever you get your podcasts, and just follow us at the Book Buzz Show with Cheryl. Also, just to let you know that this episode is being brought in partnership with Black Odyssey Media, and that is their logo on the screen. For those who are watching, for those who are listening, again, that's Black Odyssey Media at blackodyssey.net. And you can check out their roster of authors. We have had several on the show, so you can look back through some of the previous broadcasts to check out some of those interviews as well. All right, tonight we have a great show in store for you all. We actually have two authors coming on tonight separately. The first author is Brian Copeland, and we'll be discussing his book, Outraged, and there's the cover on the screen for those who are watching. Again, that's Outraged by Brian Copeland. All right, so we're going to get right into it, and without further ado, I'm going to bring on tonight's guest, as well as my co-host for this evening, Jennifer Copeland. Welcome.
Hello.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. All
so
right.
I have to ask, are we related, Jennifer? I have to ask.
I was about to say yes, but same last name. It's possible.
It may be possible. I don't know.
Yes, you never know. All right. Yes, looks like we have some people in the audience. Hi, Lisa. Welcome. Hi, Myra. Welcome. Hi, Yvonne. Welcome. I also have Instagram up, so I'll be checking that over there as well, just to doing double duty. All right. So, hi, Cheryl. Thank you for joining us. All right. So we're going to get right into it. And Brian, for those who are new to you, can you give us a little bit of your backstory and how you got started professionally in writing?
Actually, I haven't really been writing all of my life. I had my first column when I was 12 years old, writing
really?
once a week, 200 words and a little throwaway in San Leandro, California, here right next door to Oakland, which is where it is that I live. I started out professionally and still perform as a stand-up comic. I started when I was 18, and I spent a lot of time writing comedy material. And eventually, after 20 years of doing that, I'd worked my way up to opening for Smokey Robinson and Aretha Franklin and Dionne Warwick and Ray Charles and folks like that. And I decided I wanted to write a one-man play. So I wrote this one-man show called Not a Genuine Black Man about what it was like growing up in San Leandro, California, which is where I live, at a time when it was 99.99% white in my family. And this show went on to be the longest running one-man show in San Francisco theater history. I was asked to write a book based on it, a nonfiction book, which did very well and has required reading in a number of colleges and universities and high schools across the country to this day.
Okay.
And I thought that I thought that I wanted to write a crime fiction book, and that was my plan before I wrote the show. I always thought, I knew I was going to write books, but I always thought my first book would be crime fiction. So finally, I ended up doing the show for years, and then I wrote and performed 4 subsequent shows, went off Broadway, all kinds of live performance things with these solo plays. But in the back of my mind was still this idea that I wanted to write crime fiction. So I had come up with, just in my head, the idea for the character, who my detective was, who's an investigative TV reporter by the name of Topher Davis, African-American in San Francisco, and his sister, Lynn Sloan, who is SFPD homicide. I knew that those were my 2 main characters, but I didn't know what the plot was. Then one day I was doing at Book Passage in Marin County, which is a wonderful bookstore. I was part of a Black History Month event, and we were talking about it was a kind of a forum, and we were talking about the shootings of unarmed African Americans by police, and especially the fact that so many police don't end up facing any kind of repercussions. They don't get charged with anything. In a lot of cases, most cases, they don't even get fired. Or even if they do get fired, they get hired by another department someplace else. So I had that idea, and I talked to Elaine Petruccelli, who was the owner of Book Passage, and I go, "Hey, so what do you think about this idea?" And she goes, "That's a great idea. Write it." And I said, "Okay." And then we had the shutdown, and so we had the shutdown. I had nothing to do. I had all these, live performances planned and shows I was supposed to be doing. I had a new play out written I was supposed to be opening, and I had nothing to do. It was driving me crazy. And I was quarantined with my son as a musician. So we started this routine where every morning I get up at 5, I would go into a spare bedroom that I was using as an office, and I would go into the spare bedroom and I would write all morning and work on this idea that I had. And my son would go into his room where he had a music equipment set up, and he would work on his album, and then we would work all day and then come and have dinner and watch a movie at night. And that's what I did for that whole year. And at the end of that year, I had this book. And the book was originally called Administrative Leave. That was the original title, because that's what happens to these cops when they do this. Is they, first thing you hear is they get put on administrative leave.
Right. True.
And so when we were shopping the book around, some of the feedback we got was that it didn't sound like a crime novel. And so it was my wonderful agent, Kimberly Cameron, who came up with the idea of how about Outraged? Because there is so much outrage behind this violence that's perpetuated towards unarmed people of color. And so that's how I ended up here.
Okay. So how long did it take you from the time that you started writing? I know you said you did it over that year. How long did it take you to actually go from that to publishing? And how did you connect with Black Odyssey?
Let's see. It took me about 8 months to have a first draft. Altogether, I ended up doing 3 drafts before I connected with Kimberly as my agent. I had an agent previously who'd sold the first book, Not a Genuine Black Man. And she was kind of winding down and wanted to play more tennis, and then she had worked enough in her life. So she introduced Kimberly, who read it and liked it and got it, like what I was trying to do immediately. And so then she gave me a bunch of notes, and I took her notes and incorporated them. So altogether, there were 4 drafts done. And then Kimberly started to shop it around, and out of all the places that we sent it, it was Black Odyssey that got it. It was Shawanda, Black Odyssey, who read it. I was trying to do that is I want to do a crime thriller that that has all of the elements of a thriller and of mystery and whodunit. But I also, I also wanted it to be social commentary. I also wanted to be social commentary on policing and what is good policing and what is not good policing, and what the families of those who have lost people in these kinds of shootings go through after a shooting, as well as what the families of the police officers who have pulled the trigger, what they deal with and go through. Especially when it's a terrible mistake. A lot of it is negligence, and you can't say that a lot of it doesn't have to do with racism, but there are instances where somebody just made a horrible mistake that they can't take back. So how does the family deal with that? And
I like that. I like that. Okay, so what advice would you give to someone just starting out in their writing journey? What have you encountered that would that you can give some?
Well, to start with, when I knew that I wanted to, as I said, I'd written plays, I'd written stand-up, I'd written scripts, but I'd never written a novel before. And even, going back to the first book, the nonfiction book. Prior to that, I read Stephen King's book on writing, and it came out in about 2000. And it was the first book that he wrote after he was hit by that van. He got hit by a van when he was out walking one day and ended up in the hospital. And this was the first, he wasn't able to sit up for a long time. This is the first book he wrote, and it's the best book about writing I've ever read. And the first half of it is it's kind of an autobiography of his writing career, and the second part of it is primer about how to write. And one of the things he says is that he writes 1,500 words a day every single day except his birthday and Christmas, which is why he's so prolific. And what he says, what I want for you, the reader, is I want you to write 1,000 words a day. So that's what it is that I did. I wrote 1,000 words a day, 5 days a week. And so that is the best advice that I can give to anybody who wants to write is it's butt in chair. It's butt in chair and you do it. I don't believe in writer's block. I don't believe that there's such a thing. You sit there long enough and something will
say something happen once you sit there.
Even if it's not a boredom. And the other advice I would give is something that Hemingway reportedly said, and that is to always stop when you know what's going to happen next. So I would stop, I get my 1,000 words or whatever, and make sure that I stop in the middle of a paragraph, because I know then what's going to happen or in the middle of a scene. I know how the scene is going to end up. And then when I come back the next day, I've immediately got someplace to begin. And once it starts to flow, it leads me into the next chapter and the next event that my investigators will have to deal with.
I've never heard, because I asked this to different authors, and that's the first time I heard about that as far as what Hemingway just said, what you just said about Hemingway. I like that. Stop when you know what happens next.
Stop when you know what's going to happen. That way you don't sit there, the next day for an hour thinking, okay, now what do I do? Now where do I go?
Right.
I've heard of writers who'll stop in the middle of a sentence, who will stop in the middle of a sentence. And then they know when they come back, they know what's, they have to finish their sentence. And there's something that happens once you start writing. And it's not always super easy, of course. I mean, there were times when I was writing this book when it was like I was taking dictation from the ether. And then there were other times when it was like I was giving myself a root canal with no Novocaine, But the biggest key is butt in chair. Make sure your butt is in the seat.
Sounds
every
good.
day, same time, every single day, and you get your work done.
All right, sounds good. Now, how did you celebrate when you finished the book, or did you?
I didn't celebrate finishing the book as much as I celebrated publishing the book. The book was published last week on Tuesday the 23rd, and it was a big weekend for me. That Saturday was I revived Not a Genuine Black Man, the play in San Francisco, and it was the 1,000th performance. So I revived for that. It was the 20th anniversary of the 1,000th performance was Saturday, and then Sunday was my 60th birthday. So
happy birthday!
And then Tuesday, thank you. And then Tuesday, the book came out. So it was all just one big celebration over the course of those couple of days, with my kids, and they took me out to dinner, and it's been a nice week.
I love that. Love it. I'm just making sure I'm not missing any. Want to send anything over on Instagram? Okay, so let's get a little bit into the story and the characters. Okay, so for those who haven't read it yet, can you give a brief overview of? You kind of gave a little bit, a brief overview of what the story is about.
Well, what the story is about, it takes place in the Bay Area. And what the story is about is that there are Bay Area police officers, primarily retired, who have been involved in the past in shootings of unarmed African Americans, and they're turning up dead. And so what my investigators with Topher Davis, again, who was he's an investigative reporter for Channel 6 in San Francisco, and there is no Channel 6, you know, that's fiction. But it is a building. I was a radio and TV talk show host in the Bay Area for years, and it takes place in the broadcast center, actually where I worked for a number of years. And his sisters, as I said, SFPD homicide, and they, because it takes place, the murders were all over the Bay Area. They end up in investigating this to try to find out who is behind it and why. And a number of things happen in terms of the murders, the people who they come across, who the suspects are, and at one point they realize that they themselves may be in danger because of what it is that they're uncovering.
I like that. Okay, so I know you said that you've always wanted to write crime fiction. So are you a fan of actually watching it as well? And if you are, what's some of your favorites? Well,
I started, I started with crime fiction and detective stuff as a boy. I mean, I read every Hardy Boys book from the Tower of Terror to the Mysterious Caravan, which was, I think, 54 books, all the hardcover ones they used to do. And then when I got to high school, I got into Perry Mason, and I was to be a lawyer after watching Perry Mason all the time. And I read, Mr. Gardner wrote 120 or something Perry Mason books, and I read every single one of them. And then when I decided I wanted to write crime fiction, I spent 20 years reading every one I could get my hands on. And one of the really wonderful things is that because of the fact that I hosted a radio talk show for the ABC affiliate in San Francisco, KGO, for 27 years. And one of the things that was great is I got to have a lot of the authors on I was reading. I would book them when they had new books coming out. I was able to pick their brains while you're picking my brain. I was able to. So, and some I really became friendly with. Jonathan Kellerman is my mentor, who writes the Alex Delaware series. I was able to have Walter Mosley on. I had a little book club going for a while. And the first book we picked was Devil in a Blue Dress. And Walter Mosley went on and talked about it. And I learned a lot from him in terms of, I was asking him, how was it you were able to get 1940s Los Angeles, it's be so accurate, so vivid in the detail. What kind of research did you do? And he said, I made it up.
Said, oh, for real? Okay.
You didn't like go and look at, because no, because I made all this stuff. It's real.
I never would have known that, because you're right. It's very, very authentic. And
Sue
I haven't
Grafton,
read the book. I just I watched the movie. I haven't read the book.
You see the movie with Denzel? Read the book. The movie's wonderful, but the book is really, really good. And Sue Grafton was another one who I learned a lot from. I had her on a number of times. Sue Grafton wrote the Kinsey Milhone series, A is for Alibi, B is for Burglar. And sadly, she passed away a couple of weeks after Y came out. So she wrote that series for 40 years and didn't make it to Z. Didn't make it all the way through the alphabet. But she gave me again some of the best advice that I got about writing in this genre. And that is, in order to begin, she said, what you need to know is who committed the murder and why. And to know who your detectives are, of course, but you need to know who committed the murder and why. And then you take the reader on a journey, to uncover and discover exactly who did this thing. So
now, did that change any while you were writing? Because I've heard other like mystery authors that I've had on the show or thriller, and I had a couple where they said that who in the beginning who they had as the person who did it changed by the time they got to the end. Did that happen with you?
Not with this book. I knew from the very beginning who did it, and I knew why the culprit did it. With there is a second book that's going to come out in April of next year. I'm telling tales out of school, I guess, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. It's the second, and this is going to be a crime series, and this is the second in the second Topher Davis book. and it's called Shadows of Justice, and it's scheduled to come out in April of next year. And in that book, I knew who did it and why, but then partway through, the motive and everything stayed the same, but a character who I had just written as a minor character ended up, I thought, let's change it from bringing in this other character I was going to bring in to have committed the crime for this reason, and let's just make it this character. And that's exactly what I did, and it worked. And it worked. At least I think it was. We'll see when you read it.
Yeah,
I think it works very well.
I know as I was reading, because I watch a lot of classic movies as well, so it gave me the vibe of like you just said, 1940s or 50s, like procedural. Like it gave me like Sam Spade type. The world of Sam Spade, and I was in like that. Is that what you were going for?
Well, there's so many influences, and I love Dashiell Hammett, and I live in the Bay Area. I live 20 minutes from San Francisco, which is where you mentioned Sam Spade. It's where Dashiell Hammett worked. Was a Pinkerton, a Pinkerton detective when he wrote The Maltese Falcon and wrote The Thin Man, and I was a Pinkerton detective in San Francisco when I was in college for a summer.
Oh, really?
So I would just for a summer. And it was, so Hammett is definitely one of my influences. And I'll tell you another big influence, I love old radio, and for ages, because they're all in the public domain and everything is online, I go to sleep almost every night listening to Dragnet, and with Jack Joe Friday, and so and that's all police procedural. It's all police procedural. It's interview to interview to interview until you get the suspect, and the more interviews, then you find out who did it, and you find out why they did it. So there's a big Dragnet influence, I think. In terms of today, I never miss Law and Order. I watch them all. I watch them all.
And I love stuff like that too. I love whodunits. So I watch Murder, She Wrote and Old Columbo and all of that. And Law and Order is one of my favorites as well. Yes. So I love that aspect of it. And now, how did you come up? I know you said you already had who the main characters were, but did you have any like character inspirations as far as somebody in mind, as far as the look of the two main characters?
Well, one of the things that I did with Topher is I took a page out of Jonathan Kellerman's books with Alex Delaware. Well, actually, in Grafton's Kenzie Milhone too. They're never described. They're never physically described. The book is told from their point of view, but you have no idea what they look like.
You know what? You're right. Idea. I don't remember you actually described. You're right. Yeah.
Now I describe his sister Lynn, and his sister Lynn is based on my sister Tracy. She's the model for it. And Tracy has nothing to do with law enforcement, and Lynn is a former Army Ranger. And I came up with that idea of reading like the Spencer novels, Robert Parker Spencer novels. Spencer's got Hawk, and Hawk can take on 10 guys who are armed and he's not, and take them all down. Or Robert Crace's Elvis Cole has Joe Pike, who's tough like that. And I thought, you know what? I've never seen a book series where the badass is a woman. And so that's what I did with the Lynn character. Topher can't shoot a gun. He can't fight.
Right, right.
You're not going to see in a situation where they're, about to get jumped by 10 guys, and he just stands back and lets his sister take care of it. Yeah, she does.
Right, because she's ex-military as well, right? Yes.
Yeah, she's a former Army Ranger who was in the Middle East. So she, and then came back and joined the police department. And she's tough.
Yes,
she's tough.
Yes, I love strong female characters, so I enjoyed that aspect. Jennifer, do you watch a lot of? Well, I know you don't watch a lot, but do you like to read like whodunits and all of that?
Sometimes I do, but I do look at Law and Order, SVU. I've been looking at it's this show that come on called Fatal Attraction on TV One. I was looking at that real heavy, and then I had to stop
You had to get you.
You know that's based on the movie, right? You know, Jennifer, that's based on a 1987 movie with Glenn Close and Michael Douglas, and the movie is.
Yes, I remember the movie. I remember the movie.
I looked at my kids, and my kids all turned 16. I showed them all that movie when they turned 16, so that they know what could happen.
Right, it made a lot of men think twice. I tell you, when they came.
Yep, you bet it did.
About being faithful.
You bet it did.
What can happen? That's right. Now the scene at the comic book store, I love that scene. That stood out to me because I love intense scenes. So that really stood out. How difficult was that as far as writing that type of scene, like an action scene?
I knew that was going to happen, and the comic book store. That's one thing Topher and I have in common is I collect comics from the 1940s. Okay. You know, same thing, Golden Age Superman and Batman comics. I love that stuff. And he's going to pick up a comic and an expensive comic, and something happens. Right. And I knew it's based on a real store. It's based on the store that I go to. Oh, really? Okay. And the kid who owns it is based on the kid who owns the store that I go to. I knew what was going to happen there. And just the feeling was, in terms of writing it and the intensity of it, was how to write it and make it feel real for the reader. You know, put the reader there in that store when we won't say what, we'll just say that something happens. Right. I don't want to give it away. But when something is about to happen that you're not expecting, it's a benign scene. He's going in to pick up a comic book.
Right, and that's how things happen. Yeah.
Yeah. Excuse me. You're talking about you have coughing fits. I have too. Excuse me.
I mean, yes. And welcome to the ones who are watching on Instagram. I hope you're enjoying the show. Now, because I know I talked to a couple of authors before about, like, when you write things like that, it's like a dance kind of. You have to, and then the intensity, you have to build that level of intensity. So was there some kind of formula or anything that you use? I know you said you read Stephen King how to, as far as like that. He is the master of that.
Yes, he is. Nobody better than Stephen King at that. Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things that I like to do is I like to write a scene where it's just a normal, regular scene, and then something happens out of the blue. Right. You know, like you and I are and the three of us are right now having this conversation and doing this show online, and then, you know, all of a sudden a bullet comes flying through the window and hits.
God forbid.
God forbid. I don't mean to jinx you.
Right.
And I said, right, through my window. We'll put it that way.
Right.
And the whole thing is just not something you're expecting, because it's you know, and I like scenes like that, you know, where two people are having a conversation, and because that's, again, unfortunately, that's how I read and listen to a lot of true crime. I love true crime podcasts. And we're just, you know, somebody who's, you know, I was listening to one yesterday about a girl who was a 9-year-old who was just going to the store one Saturday and walks out of the store and is, you know, headed home and is snatched and disappears for 30 years. And this is true and really happening, because that's how life, unfortunately, how tragedies unfold in life sometimes. And a lot of times, you know, and there's nobody who got into a car accident who expected to get into a car accident.
True.
You know, you get in a car, you're driving to, you know, pick up your wife from work, and you you get rear-ended. You know, and so those are the kinds of scenes I like to write, because then I like to write scenes where I'm imagining the reader reading it and then going, "What the heck? Where did that come from?"
Right.
You know. So there are a couple of those in Outrage.
Yes. Now, one thing too that was in there, it happens a lot with Topher, learning that the station is cutting back.
Right.
And so his career, his job is a big part of his life. So he has to come to terms, okay, how's this, what am I going to do afterwards? And it just made me think, okay, how many people actually go through that same scenario, that same situation? Was that based on anything as far as real life, or is that just something you came up with?
It was based on real life, not so much for me, not yet. But because I do so many different things,
right?
But the broadcasting part of it is real, because the broadcasting. I mean, I've had, as I said, I had a show on ABC Radio for 27 years, and then it changed ownership, and I decided to change format, and all the talk shows were gone, just just like that, literally like almost overnight. And that's how precarious broadcasting can be. And what I did with Topher is he's won a gazillion local Emmy Awards, regional Emmy Awards. He's very well known in the region. He's a local celebrity. Everybody knows, who he is. And then all of a sudden he finds out that in 30 days, this is going to go away. And usually they don't give you 30 days notice. Usually, it's broadcasting. In broadcasting, they fire you. I call it in the book, but what we call it in broadcasting, the inevitable Friday afternoon. What happens is on a Friday, you're called into the GM's office, and you're told you're being let go. And in those places that are just cold-blooded, I've seen people who work somewhere 20 years and they're let go on a Friday, and then you're escorted out of the building by security. People who live there for 20 years. They escort you out. It's like you're going to walk out and steal microphones or something. And so what I did here was he's got 30 days before his job goes away, and he wants to do one more story, and he's trying to figure out what the heck the story is, and then figure out what he's going to do with his life. And it's especially hard for men, because men, so much of a man's self-worth is his job and is his career. And I think, I'm not a woman. I've known many, but I for a man, it's more so than a woman. Maybe you tell me if I'm wrong, but in my experience, not that it doesn't, not that women don't care about their careers or as invested in the careers as men are, but for men, it's more of their self-worth. That's tied up in that than a woman's self-worth, I think. I mean, you tell me if I'm wrong. But I think
I think I can agree with that. For the and speaking in general, yes. I think more and more women are starting to be more have that more driven career where is so much of who they are. So they've taken on those attributes. But yes, for the most part, I agree with you that as far as male, female, as far as the career is who they are, that's how they identify. Right.
And it's such a big part. And so that's one of the underlying themes, and one of the things that he's dealing with is, okay, when he's got a lot of money, he's got plenty of money, never needs to work again in his life if he doesn't want to, but he wants to. So the idea is, what am I going to do? Okay, I got one more story. I'm going to make it the best story I ever did, but then what? Am I going to sit on the bench fishing? What do I do with myself? So, he's just gone through a breakup. It's a rough time. He's just gone through a breakup. His girlfriend of 4 years has left, and so it's him and his little dog. He lives in
I love that too. That he has a little dog.
Like I got. That's one thing that stole my own life. I have a little Bichon Frise too, little white dog, little white fluffy dog, and
love it.
And so, it's so there's a lot of self-exploration, that he goes through while he and Lynn are investigating these murders.
I love that. Yeah, I like that aspect of it because it's real life. We're getting close to our time, so we're going to do our giveaway. So we have. We have Outraged, a copy of Outraged for a lucky winner tonight. All right. So earlier we were talking about, let's see, let me get my notes back out. Okay. Okay, so I asked Brian, how does he celebrate when he finishes a book? And he said he doesn't really celebrate when he finishes the book, but he did when he what? So what was his answer to that question? The first person who puts it in the comments will be our lucky winner tonight. And here's the book again that you'll be winning. Anybody remember that? I'm checking Instagram too, just to make sure I don't miss anybody. When I asked him how he celebrates finishing a book, he said he didn't necessarily celebrate when he finished it, but he celebrated when.
And I was paying attention, but I can't enter.
Right.
Well, I'll tell you what, Jennifer, since you're apparently a relative, I'll send you one. I'll send you one. Since we're apparently kin. We're apparently kin. I got to check on Ancestry, like I said, find out we're related.
Okay.
Anybody? Okay, Yvonne is the winner. She said when it was published. Yes.
Hey,
yes.
Yvonne, congratulations. I hope you like it.
Congratulations, Yvonne. Just email me your mailing address and I'll get this out to you. And I'll put my email address in the comments. Let's see.
Well, while you're doing that, can I mind if I throw in a plug for my show?
Sure.
Yeah, I have a podcast that I do that's available anywhere you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. We just started putting it on YouTube about 3 months ago. It's called Copeland's Corner, and it's a lot like what my radio show was. I have 3 comedians who join me, and we go through the news of the week for an hour. We talk about the news. We talk about the crazy stuff that's happening in politics, or just, whatever news stories we find. Sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's heavy, but it's always informative and it's always entertaining. But it's called Copeland's Corner. And again, anywhere you get your podcast, or you can watch it on YouTube. It drops on Fridays. I'm sorry, on Thursdays. Okay. We record it on Wednesdays, and it's like you. We're not live. We record it on Wednesday. We drop it on Thursday.
Okay, so Copeland's Corner. Make sure everyone to go check it out. Podcast. You can check it out on YouTube, and you said it's on other podcast platforms.
Yeah, iTunes and Spotify and Amazon, and anywhere where we can get podcasts, you can get Copeland's Corner. We started it during the shutdown, and and we've got about 100. I think we've done 170 of them, or so. So and they're all available, and just about a dozen so far on YouTube.
Okay, and I'll make sure that I go out and subscribe to your channel.
And me too.
Yes. Now, are you going to be anywhere? Are you doing any events or any other interviews coming up for the book?
I am doing Black Authors Matter tomorrow. I'm doing that show tomorrow. I'm doing a number of signings throughout the Bay Area. If you are in the East Bay, in the Oakland area, I'm going to be in Hayward at B Street Books on May the 18th. I'm at Books Inc. in San Leandro. I think it's May the 19th. I'm there. But there'll be a bunch of places that I'll be signing all over the Bay Area and beyond. And something else that I want to mention too, and that is any book club that reads Outraged, I will be a part of your book discussion. If you're somewhere in my area and we can find a date that works, I will come to your house or wherever it is that you have your meeting. Or if that doesn't work, or you're somewhere out of the area, or I just can't get there for schedule reasons or whatever, we'll do it over Zoom. But I'll be a part of it. If you would like me to join your discussion, just go to my website, which is briancopeland.com. Click Contact Brian. That goes right to my scheduling people, and we'll figure something out. But that's any book club that reads this book anywhere in the country. You can read the book. He said, if I can't get there, we'll do it over Zoom.
All right, sounds good. And I want to thank you for coming on the show. I enjoyed the book, and I enjoyed our discussion today. And continued success with everything.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
You're
It's
welcome.
been a pleasure. And nice to meet you, cousin.
You too, cousin.
We're relatives. Don't you owe me money or something?
Right.
We're relatives. If you hand me some money, we're relatives.
All right. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
All right. You too. Bye-bye. Thanks, everybody.
Good night. All right. So we're going to get into our next interview. And we have coming up author Kimberly Brown. And we're going to be discussing her book. Let me get that on the screen. We're going to be discussing her book, Courage to Love Again, by Kimberly Brown. And love the cover, too. And without further ado, I'm going to bring on our other guest for the night. Hello. Welcome.
Surprise, my fave. I wanted to tell you.
Oh, man. Let me put up the banner because I put it up on All right. So, Kimberly, thank you for joining us on the show. And let me get my Okay, so we're going to get right into it. I enjoyed the book, by the way. I don't know if I told you that when we were communicating, but I enjoyed it. Now, for those who are new to you, can you give us a little of your backstory? Let us know how you got started on your professional writing journey. Oh, you're still on. Let me see. You're on mute.
That was me. Okay. I had myself on mute. I actually got started writing. I've been writing since I was in like 6th grade. And then in 2019, I tried the self-publishing journey, but I didn't really know what I was doing. So I kind of put it down for a little bit. And then in 2021, I saw that B-Love was actually opening for submissions. So I said a quick prayer and I sent her my book, and here we are today with, I think, 41 books under my name.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
Now, what was the name of the first book that you published with her?
What was it called? It was called Catch 22. Okay. It's not up anymore, but eventually I think I might go through and revise it. It was supposed to be like a 2-parter, so I have to completely finish it out before I put it back up.
Okay. Now, what type of books, for those who are new to you, what type of books do you normally write, and what genre?
I normally write contemporary romance and women's fiction, but I also dabble with erotica and urban.
Okay.
And dabble, you do more than dabble, ma'am.
Everybody tells me that.
Oh, man. Hi, Ruby. Welcome.
Hi, Miss Ruby.
And welcome again to everybody on Instagram. Okay, so how did your association, because I know you're under B-Love, so how did your association with Black Odyssey Media come about?
It was proposed. They brought it to me. B brought it to me about, it was a couple of us she brought it to, about potentially doing a traditional book. And we sent in the first 6 chapters, and they liked what they read, so we had to send in the rest of it, and we had to go through a whole round of, it was a lot of editing. It was several rounds of editing. We had to edit, and then we had to send it to them, and then they sent it back, and we had to edit again. But it was a longer editing process than I'm used to, but I did like that it took that long, because this is a traditional book, so
right.
I feel like it's going to be in more eyes on it than it would if it was just under my publisher or me doing it myself. So I'm glad it took that many edits for that.
Okay. So when you're deep in writing mode, what does a typical day look like for you normally?
It's just a regular day. Like I don't outline, so I just kind of free write. So whenever I get some inspiration, I'm at the computer just writing it down.
Are you full-time writer, yes, or do you have another?
I've been full-time since October.
Okay.
Mhm.
So how is it so far? How are you liking being a full-time writer?
I love it. I'm trying to get myself into a schedule where I can focus on nothing but writing for a set amount of hours a day, but
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't really happen. It definitely hasn't happened this month. We bought a house, so we just been moving and trying to get
Oh,
settled. So
okay. Yeah, I know how that is. We just did that too. I know how that is. How long does it normally take for you to put out a book?
I typically write about 2 to 3 things at a time. So if I'm focusing solely on one, I would say a couple of weeks. But being that I can't focus on just one, I have to write at least 2 to 3.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe 2 months.
Depending on which one that you're feeling that day.
Yes, ma'am. Depending on what character is talking to me, that's where I'll focus the most of my attention to.
Okay. Um. Now, since you started, now I know you said you got with Be Love in 2021. What year was it again that you actually started?
Um, I did my first self-publishing in 2019.
Oh, 2019. Okay.
Mhm.
So since then, what do you know now that you wish you had known in the beginning?
Ooh, get a professional editor because I was trying to edit that myself when I first started, and yeah, a professional editor, a professional graphic designer.
That's important, especially the editing part. I know it can be sometimes expensive, I guess, but it's definitely,
It's
I
worth
think
it.
it's worth it.
It is worth it.
Yeah. Because you want to put out a good product. So anything that's got your name on it, you want to make a good impression. Um, Now I normally ask this with romance authors. What book or movie is your go-to when you are looking for a good romance?
Hmm. I don't know. Um, I don't really have a go-to.
Really?
I really don't.
Um, I know some people have said Jane Austen. They love Jane Austen. Some have said Pretty Woman, which is I've watched that a million times. Um, as far as books for me, I think one that always stands out for me is Indigo by Beverly Jenkins.
Hmm.
Love that book. What about you, Jennifer? What's the go-to for you for romance?
Well, actually, it's two. One is Pretty Cage Bird by Kimberly Brown,
Thank
and
you.
the other one is Unfinished Business by Brenda Jackson.
Okay. Yeah, Brenda Jackson. Yeah, that's another one you can't go wrong with her and Beverly Jenkins. So yeah, I definitely can see that. Um, Now, what do you do to celebrate when you finish a book normally?
Um, I normally celebrate on release days if I'm going to celebrate anything. So I'll either go out to eat with a friend, or I might do a little bit of shopping.
Okay.
So it's the perfect time to treat myself.
Right, right. Love that. Okay, so for those who haven't read the book yet, can you give a brief overview of what it's about?
Okay, so we have Pasha and we have Caleb. Um, Pasha is going through a really tough time at home. She's dealing with anxiety and depression. She suffered a couple of miscarriages, and then when she got just about to the end of her pregnancy, she had a stillborn. So
Mm,
she's dealing with a whole lot mentally. And on top of that, she's dealing with also losing her parents and her husband cheating and putting her out of the house. So she's dealing with a whole lot mentally.
right.
Um, and she's just trying to get back to a place where she knows herself. Um, she's been going to therapy, and she's trying to rebuild relationships with her family and her friends, and just focusing on being a better version of herself. Like, she wasn't really looking for love, And then we have Caleb. Caleb has a little bit of trauma from losing his parents, and then his family basically kind of abandoning him because they wanted money. But when he meets her, it's like he said something in her spirit kind of just reached out to him.
Mm-hmm.
So when he picks her up that night from when her husband puts her out,
Mm-hmm.
The interaction they had, it just kind of stayed with him. And months down the line, he still thinks about her. And he just kind of wants to offer her friendship until friendship isn't what she wants anymore. But he's very patient with her. He's very kind to her. I think he was just exactly what she needed. He was an angel.
Really yes, I loved his character. Looks like we have the book readers venue on Instagram just joined us. Hello, and she said hello. Okay, so we're going to get a little bit into the characters and the story. Okay, just from the beginning, I felt so bad for Pasha. Is it Pasha or Pasha? For Pasha, and like you said, the scene where her husband, basically putting her out. She comes home and all her stuff is out on the curb. And then to make matters worse, he has another female there. So I just felt for her from the very beginning. Mm-hmm. And can't even imagine, how that would feel. And then he's tearing her down on top of it, mm-hmm. with his words. What did you think, Jennifer, about that scene in the beginning?
That scene, I might have shed some tears because I really felt for her. And I was just like, why Kimberly doing me like this early in the book?
Yeah, because it was right out the gate. Yeah.
And then I just wanted to take Raymond by his neck. The same way he put all her stuff out, I just wanted to sling him out there too.
Most definitely. And I loved, so she calls a ride share, and Caleb, he owns a transportation company. Mm-hmm. And he's filling in for one of his drivers, so he just happens to be the one who picks her up. And he's witnessing all of this and how her husband is treating her and talking to her, and his heart goes out to her. Just that entire scene, I loved it. And his protective instincts kicked in, mm-hmm. with her from the beginning. And then we go into where he takes her to a hotel, and her husband has cut off all the credit cards. So because she was a housewife, everything, he handled all the finances. So that's all she had. And so Caleb, he does the right thing, and he pays for her to stay for a couple of weeks. And with her being a proud woman, she didn't want to accept at first, but she did end up accepting his help. But just, I couldn't even imagine. It was so heartbreaking. So heartbreaking. Was it difficult for you to write?
I wouldn't say it was difficult for me to write, but I feel like I try to take on the emotions of my characters while I'm writing so that I can actively portray them, mm-hmm. the way that I wanted to be read. So I had to briefly put myself in the mindset of Pasha just for that moment.
Yes, because and then her husband was unnecessarily cruel to her.
He was. Every time he saw her, he just had to say something. He couldn't just let it go.
Oh my gosh, he would have got. It would have been on and popping, man. I tell you, but she was already so beaten down and from mental abuse, verbal, and then grieving on top of it. So I'm sure she didn't even have it in her, even have the strength to.
She didn't. Yeah. But luckily she had Caleb by her side, because every time he said something, he was right there.
Yes, he was. He almost broke his arm. Oh man, he really had the wrong one with him, but what he did to help her was just so selfless, and so it was just an awesome thing. Now I want to talk. I love stories that have strong friendships and I know in abusive relationships, even though he didn't physically abuse her, he still was very abusive and distanced her from. I don't know if it was him distancing her or her just because of everything going on from her friends.
I think she kind of distanced herself, but he wasn't any help with it, because when they would try to come by or try to talk to him about her, he would always tell them, "Oh, she just don't want to talk to you, or she don't want to be bothered with you." So he wasn't really helping her at all with that.
Goodness. But I loved her friend. Avon, is that how you pronounce her name?
Yes.
I loved her friend, and I love the scene between them when. Okay, so let me back up. Okay, so for those who haven't read that, she ends up at a hotel, and it just happens to be the hotel that her best friend, that they've been friends from childhood, is the manager. And when she sees her name and Kayla's name on the guest registry, she goes up to the room, and that's their first time seeing each other in a while. But what I like too is she wouldn't let her push her back out of her life. No matter how much she tried, she wasn't letting it happen again. So I love that too, that she was a true friend to her.
She was. I think I modeled Avon after a couple of my friends, because no matter what I'm going through in life, they would not let me just go through it by myself.
And she was constantly building her up too. You know, when Pastor got down on herself, her friend was right there saying, "No, we're not going to do have you thinking like this," and she kept building her up, and that's what I loved about it.
Yeah, because she was so used to hearing Raymond always beat her down and say that she was worthless, basically, that she started, taking on that stuff upon herself to talk to herself like that. And you're right, her friend wasn't having it. And I love too that she was ready to throw hands for her.
Yes, she was.
And that's what you did. You need you a good friend that has your back. Now, I love that you introduced to the mental health aspect of it, and showing where her depression and the effects of it basically on her life, but also the people around her. Was that intentional, putting that in the story?
Yes, ma'am. So I actually have a background in mental health. I have a bachelor's degree in psychology, and I'm working on my master's in mental health counseling, but I also worked at a mental health hospital for children. So even though I'm not working in my field of study, I still like to incorporate what I have learned into my writing whenever I can. I feel like maybe someone that's reading the book can relate to a character story, even if it's fiction. I want it to be relatable, and it might be something in there that can help somebody somewhere.
Yes. And because it's still sometimes such a stigma around seeking help, for mental health, I love that, when, that's placed in stories and where they're seeking help. So I love that she was seeing a therapist, and she was religious about going to see her therapist. Even when she was dead broke, she figured out a way to still be able to pay for her therapy sessions. So I love that aspect of it too. And I also love strong relationships, like I said, with friendships and strong family bonds. So I love Caleb's relationship with his sister and his niece. She was so adorable. She was so adorable. I loved her. But I liked his backstory too, because he had some trauma in his life with his parents, like you said, dying. And then he stepped up. He was only 18, I believe. And he stepped up to make sure him and his sister stayed together. So he quit school and went to work to be able to keep her and foster her. So that by itself just speaks to his character. So I love that. Yes. What did you think of Caleb, Jennifer?
He bay all day for me, because he was just everything from the very beginning. Because you're not going to find many many men that are going to step up like he did. Not today, because I sure been searching, and I'm about to be 52, so I ain't family yet.
So you ain't found you haven't found Caleb yet. But and his family was a piece of work.
They was
Yes,
talk
Lord.
about deadbeat family.
how do you
man.
get upset about somebody else's money?
Yes, but you know what? I hear so much about greed taking over when somebody passes, and then family falling out over money. So that definitely rang true. But it's a shame that they both were young, and in their time of need, their family wasn't there for them unless they could get something out of it, which was
Right.
The lowest. And then they punished him basically because he spoke up, and they were estranged for several years. I mean, 17 years, I believe.
Years.
Yeah, 17 years. But I felt bad for the breaking of the relationship between him and his cousins, and William especially, who wanted a relationship with him, and he wanted with him too, but then it was too toxic with William's mother in the picture.
Caleb knew, even though he wanted the relationship, he knew that his cousin would never go against his mama, no matter if she was right or wrong. So being that he knew what it's like to not have his parents, he didn't want to wish that on anybody else, regardless if I want a relationship with you or not. I know you're not going to go against your mother. This is the person that gave birth to you. You're not going to go against her. So to avoid me messing up your relationship with her, I'm just going to step back and let y'all have it.
Yeah, so that thing with when he told William that that it wasn't going to happen, and the reason why, that was a sad thing. But I agree with him because your peace of mind is priceless, and letting William back in his life is basically letting his mother back in his life. So.
And she wouldn't have never let them have a happy relationship at all.
Right. Love that as well. One of my favorite standout moments was the conversation between Pasha and her friend Avon when they were at when Pasha got her own place, and Avon broke down, and I was out of character for her, but she was letting her know how much her not being in her life by her pushing her away affected her. And I think that was the first time that Pasha really realized that her actions basically affected her best friend. I love that. Yeah, I love that moment between them.
Avon has always been the stronger person in their relationship. So to see her actually break down about it, wow, this really, it took a lot out of me, but it also took a lot out of the people that actually care about me too. Like I matter to somebody.
Right, because even when Caleb that night said, "Is there anybody that you can call?" and she said, well, she did say she had friends, but she wouldn't feel right calling them because they had been so long since they had any kind of close contact. But what I like too is like the slow build, like Caleb said, I'm not gonna push. I just want a friendship with you. I know you're not ready for anything more than that, because she was very hesitant, which is understandable. But it was like serendipity too, because they kept running into each other. So I love that aspect of it. And he basically started courting her in a roundabout way, because it was supposed to be friendship, but he was basically courting her too.
And her friends told her that. They kept saying, "So when are you gonna realize that you're dating this man that you're not really?"
They can keep saying it's not dating, right? It was so cute though, and it's sad because she wasn't used to a guy treating her well. So she was always waiting for the other shoe to drop, or for him to show his true colors. But and even his sister told her, he's a good guy. What you see is what you get. But one of my favorite scenes, once they were still friends, but they went out to eat at a taco restaurant, and they were sharing each other's food. And I believe he fed her too, if I'm not mistaken. Didn't he feed her?
I think he did.
So
I think so.
At some point, I think he did feed her.
Yes, I love that. It was so intimate, but and just so natural. Because at first I think she hesitated, but then she went on to let him feed her a piece of the whatever it was he was eating. But I I had all the feels for this couple. Love the way you wrote them. Now during the divorce proceedings, she realized she ended up getting a lawyer. This was so crazy to me. He even wanted to control the divorce proceedings, so he got her a lawyer that he could control because he knew that she couldn't afford one on her own. But he didn't know that her friend's sister was a divorce attorney.
Mm-hmm.
So he got shocked when he walked in there.
He thought that him hiring her a lawyer probably would have worked out better in his favor. That they would have told her,
right,
hey, this is what you need to go ahead and take, and it would have just been over like that. But like she said, if he bothered to really get to know her friends, he would know that Blake's sister was a lawyer.
I love that though, but it just goes to show you how manipulative and controlling he was, and like she called him narcissistic because it was all about him. But even though the lawyer had said that she had a very good case because she could get him for adultery and abandonment, he, I guess, behind the scenes had been harassing her and all of that. So she was telling Caleb, that her anxiety was up because all of this was taking a toll on her. And so he basically told her, do what makes your spirit feel lighter. Or I don't know what how he said it, but that's basically what he was saying. And so she decided to just, not fight for all that she could get because she wanted her peace of mind. So that was another issue where peace of mind was at the forefront.
Because I feel like even if, like she said, if she had gotten the house, she wouldn't have been able to afford it for one because she didn't make the kind of money that he made to be able to maintain the house. And then he would have been vindictive enough to just
do something to it or keep hounding her.
He just would not have let her have any kind of peace with that. And the way that he harassed her every time he saw her, it would have been 10 times worse if he actually had to come off more money to give her. So I think she did the right thing with just letting him have it.
Mm-hmm. I agree because she had been through enough, and she he never would have let her, even if she had won, he would have made her life miserable just to spite her, to get back at her. Now with Avon, she kept trying to get Pasha to open up and take a chance with Caleb, but she wasn't taking her own advice when it came to Malcolm. She really liked him, but she was seeing various, other men, but she really liked him, but she was afraid to commit. So I liked it when Pasha called her out on that as well. Like, you need to get this man a chance.
It's like pot, meat, kettle.
Right.
We're not willing to do it too.
Right.
But she openly admitted that she was afraid of getting hurt or ending up in a situation like Pasha. She was very adamant about she wasn't trying to go to jail. Probably if something like that.
Right. Because I think they even mentioned Pasha had said with her ex when she beat him up pretty bad when he
was that man's wife.
So, but I love the little intimate scenes, like when all the couples got together, the friends got together for game night and stuff like that. Just the little stuff like that I loved as well. Kaylin was always in tune to how Pasha felt and making her smile and feel better. So I liked too when he took her to the smash room to get out her any kind of aggression, and for him too, it was therapeutic for everything that he was dealing with the family being, back in his life. And since he went to the funeral.
I think with that, he knew that she had a whole lot of built up aggression, and of course, with someone like Raymond, you can't really just say how you feel and it be heard. So it sits there, and he
Right.
wanted her to let it go. I mean, of course, he wanted to be there for her when she was trying to, heal herself, but he wanted her to at least get some of the anger and some of the hurt and pain out of her. Because if you just sit there and let that fester, it was weighing on her, and it was making her anxiety and depression a whole lot worse than it needed to be.
Yes. It was just such a beautiful, not just love story, but what's the word I'm looking for? Like a rediscovery of self, for Pasha. One of the most romantic scenes that I liked was when Caleb sent Pasha flowers at work. Mm-hmm. And he just said that he basically did it just because he wanted to, see her smile, make her smile. So you just imagine you going from this demon, Raymond, and then you're experiencing all of this with Caleb. So I know it was just making her mind real, but loved it. What was one of your favorite scenes, Jennifer, from the book?
My favorite scene was when Caleb went and paid for the service so her little boy could be buried beside her parents.
I love that too. That was a beautiful scene as well.
Yeah.
That was very emotional. That one did make me cry a little bit while I was writing it.
Oh,
I was back there in my bed boohooing. My son said, "What's wrong with you, Mom?" He said, "Oh, you read one of them books. That's okay."
He said he used to it. When he know you reading the book, he know.
Yeah, he know.
Oh man, we are at our time, but I could go on and on and on about this book, but I really enjoyed it. Great read, and we're going to get into our giveaway. Some lucky audience member is going to get a print copy of Courage to Love Again. And let me see. Okay, so I hope you all were paying attention. Okay, so how many books did Kimberly says that she has so far published? I hope you all were listening. The first person to put it in the comments. And I'm looking at Instagram too.
I sure was.
Oh man. Anybody remember how many books she's published so far? I thought I saw something pop up over here. Anybody? Not quite, Ruby. Not quite. Try again. Islin, not quite. Both of you a little over. Not quite. Anybody on Instagram?
Look, too bad they can't do phone a friend.
Right. Closer. Islin, you're closer. Okay, let's go to it. Let's go to another one because it looks like that one is it's too hard. Okay. When I asked Kimberly, what does she do to celebrate or when she finishes the book? She said that she celebrates when she releases the book. What does she say she does to celebrate when she releases the book? Anybody remember what she says she does to fit when she finishes when she releases a book? Okay, Purple Jam Girl has it. Go out to eat and shopping. Okay, so we have a winner.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Islin. Okay. I think I don't know if I have your mailing address or not. If I don't, then just email it to me and I'll get this out to you. You're gonna love this book. It was very, very good. All right, congratulations. And again, Kimberly, thank you so much for coming on the show. Before you go, can you let people know about what you have coming up and about your book event?
I have actually a couple events that I'm going to be at this year, starting in June with Indie Love, and then August I have the Lights Camera Action. That's the Shira Lee's event in Raleigh, and then I'm also on the Boozy Book Tour in Charlotte in August. September it's a book cruise with Whitney Escapes. The link is in my bio, so if you happen to want to go on the cruise and buy some books,
okay,
do that too. And then in October, Aisha Bree and I are hosting our very first book event called Southern Hearts and Signed Kisses. So I am very excited about that.
Oh man, I love that name too of the event. I'm planning an event too, so I know it's a lot of work, but
it is.
Yes, it is. And when is that one again?
It's in October 18th and 19th.
Okay, and where's it gonna be?
Columbia, South Carolina.
Okay. All right. So you all, if you're looking for an event to go to this year, check out her event coming out in October, and then or the ones that she's going to be at: Indie Love, Lights, Camera, Action, Whitney Escapes. I think you said one more, but I can't remember what it was.
Book tour.
Okay. All right. And there's her information on the screen. It is also in the description where you can follow her on social media and her website. So if you want to stay in touch, just go to the description and I have all her information there as well. All right. I want to thank you for coming on the show. And I want to thank everybody for coming out and being so engaged. Jennifer, I want to thank you for co-hosting. Did you have anything else before we sign off for Kimberly?
Kimberly knows how I feel about her. She just had me ever since Pretty Cage Bird. I know I get on her nerves getting in her inbox all.
I love when people hop in my inbox. So you are always welcome there.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to try this book because Jennifer mentioned it twice. Pretty Cage Bird. I'm gonna have to check it out. So I'm writing it down.
It is so good. I wouldn't steer you wrong.
No, you won't. No, you wouldn't. All right, and again, thank everybody for coming out. Thank you, Kimberly, and I want everybody to enjoy the rest of your evening. And I'll see you all next time.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Good night.
Good night.